Hello, this is First Fire Non-Assault Move. Welcome back to the 46th episode in the War in the East series. Let's get a situation report right up front. I want to apologize for how the audio sounded towards the last portion of our previous video. I don't know what happened to the mic audio, but I've pumped up the gain, so hopefully you can hear me better. I did some sound tests, and my voice is a lot louder. So should be good now. All right, so situation report. Oh, also, let's preface the turn with I am a complete idiot. I totally missed a game-changing aspect of the game, which is victory points. Yes, very important. That's how we win the war in the East, is with victory points. And we are gunning for a 290 automatic Axis decisive victory, and I was extolling how close we were to getting that done, and my oh my was I wrong, and apologies to the War in the East veterans that knew this, that may have been watching. Oh man. So yeah, the if we hover over here, that 71 Voronezh 16, that is the manpower. That is not the victory points, which for some reason, I was just going off of what I thought might be the logical, what that number might logically mean next to the city. And I thought I translated that to victory points, and I was woefully wrong, egregiously wrong, and it's a little. We have to take a step back and look at what that might mean for our plans, because we check this out. All right, victory conditions. Why didn't I read this? I thought I did, and I just came to my own conclusion based off of my gaming experience what that number might mean, and I was wrong. So victory point locations and values. I might have seen this and dismissed it. I don't know. Anyways, I was wrong. So for heavy urban locations, you get 5 victory points. For light, you get 3. And for a city, you get 1. There's a reason why, after executing the Soviets' turn once we took Stalino, our victory points didn't jump up very much. They only jumped up 3 points. So we have to capture almost the entire map to get 290. By the math I was just going over once I came to this enlightenment. Somewhere in here it's talking about why the victory points are the way they are, because historically the German objectives, here it is, the historical German objective to advance to the north-south line of Archangel and Astrakhan by holding on to a minimum number of cities and urban hexes, with the amount determining the level of victory. The actual number of victory points required for the various victory levels is dependent on the particular campaign and scenario. We're playing a campaign scenario. I think it's an alternate one. I saw somewhere in the fine print that at one point in one of the scenarios you only have to reach 250 victory points to get a Axis decisive victory auto win. This one, it's 290, so we're playing one of the harder ones, I believe. And here are some of the automatic victory point conditions for an auto surrender with the Germans. Anyways, all this fine print means we are light years off from our calculations determining victory points. After reflection, the plan doesn't change very much. I still intend to focus on the destruction of the Soviet army rather than going for victory points, because the second order effect, by destroying the Soviet army, it's easier to get to victory point locations. However, we still need to pay attention to achieving at least a level of a major victory. It's unlikely. We'll have to probably take Moscow and Leningrad and a host of other cities to get 290, because 3 points and 1 point and 5 points, they don't add up as much as what I was thinking. 13 points. So yeah, I was way off. Anyways, after that being said, German plans won't change very much. Destroy the Soviet field army as best we can as we move into 1943. Long term, this means we may reach. This game may go to 1945 because Soviets aren't going to take Berlin. I'm telling you that right now. We will have an Axis major victory. I'm pretty confident of that, but that will take us to the very last turn to achieve that, which I think it says in here. Yeah, I read it in here somewhere. At the last turn, by the first turn of October, the winner is determined by the number of victory points controlled by the Axis player. If neither player, yeah, here it is. If neither player wins an automatic victory, decisive major or minor for the Soviet player, decisive for the Axis, by the first turn in October 1945, the winner is determined by the number of points controlled by the Axis player. What concerns me, if we go to 1945, is what part does the Allied intervention play for the Germans on the Eastern Front? Historically, we had to pull troops off the Eastern Front when the Allies landed in Normandy. How badly are we going to be impacted by that in the game? I haven't read the fine print, but I will. So there's a sense of urgency for 1943 to do as much damage as we possibly can to the Soviets in 1943 before things start to get out of hand and fighting on two full fronts, and we have to strip forces from the Eastern Front to go west. So what we're looking at now is the third week of February 1943, and this is the conclusion of moves and attacks for the Germans this turn. What I wanted to do is something similar in nature to the last video. We'll watch the Soviets turn, then I will do my moves and attacks for turn 89, and then we'll watch the Soviets turn again to cover a little more territory in one video. Let's get a situation report in fairly quickly to not have this video run too long. So Tallinn still held out, no surprise there. Did we do any further damage? No, barely a drop in the bucket, losing a lot of men in the process. I am seriously considering stop being fanatical about this. Repeating something that fails over and over again is madness. May just screen the Soviets with a handful of regiments maybe, and just screen Tallinn in it, and it's tying up these forces. They're better served in the front. Thinking about doing that. To the far north, Army Group North's area of operations, we continue to grind forward, carving out small gains here and there. A lot of attacks, as we can see across the front. We want to keep the pressure on in as many places as we can, keep the Soviets off balance and forcing them to react to any pressure points, problem areas on their front, so that they just can't mass up where our main axis of advance and our intentions are more serious, which would be reaching the Gulf of Finland to cut off a portion of these forces to destroy some of the Soviet army. If we can do that with the remaining winter days before mud sets in, still trying to disrupt as much as we can, and I believe M60 pointed out that the Soviets are starting to get massive, well, they already have massive amounts of field guns. Now they are being represented as divisional assets that are actually counters on the map. Divardi right here. And we look at the order of battle real quick. We're still over 1,000,000, which is great. We're almost, we climbed actually. We gained tank numbers. We're at 8,500 now. We were in the sevens, high sevens. Now we're 84, almost halfway to 9,000 tanks. And if we look down here, Soviets, I think that number is a little reduced. It was in the 6 millions, but you know, 2 million is a lot of troops, but we're hanging in there close to the Soviets. Still have a ridiculous amount of artillery, field pieces of all sorts, shapes and sizes, and their aircraft dwarfs. Their Air Force dwarfs ours as well. Tanks, though, closing in, almost equal, because the Soviets have lost a massive amount of tanks. Total 38,260. All right. Moving on. Continuing to attack all along the front across Army Group North frontage. So we'll scroll down to Veliky Luki, pursuing the Soviets into the foothills and the mountain ranges here. This rough territory, we're going to just screen them as well and push to the north and the south of this range of hills and mountains. Pushing towards Ryzev and Vyazma, which we are adjacent to now. Soviets defending in great strength. And the Soviets are making a conscious effort, I believe, distributing their forces to stop us from taking Leningrad and also stop us from taking Moscow. And other parts of the front are suffering in troop count, really, from Ural. Well, there's a little concentration here. We'll talk about this in a second. From maybe Kursk south, Soviets have far less troop density and troop count and strength in arms than they do north of Kursk, where they are protecting Moscow and Leningrad. We'll still look to take advantage in the south, as we have been, and destroy Soviet formations to make it even less strong for the Soviets in the south, forcing them to eventually pull forces out of Army Group Center and Army Group North's area of operations. If not, we will just roll up the entire south and have an even easier time to get encirclements and destroy the Soviets. Stop. Start. So let's go back up. See where some action has taken place. Well, we committed the 2nd SS Panzer Corps a little overzealous. I did not see this. I should have done aerial recon, but we forced some of the Soviets back into their own deeper reserves, and now they are all stacked up, and I am anticipating these 2 SS Panzer Grenadier divisions will be attacked and forced to retreat. Maybe, maybe not. We just didn't have the movement factors to occupy this hex, which was a serious oversight on my part. But still pressuring Ryzev and also Vyazma to the south. South of Vyazma, all the way down to the Bryansk sector, continuing to attack the Soviets, where we have some advantages. Didn't do much here because we're kind of thin along the line, and the Soviets are starting to stack up. We're getting reinforcements trickling in. They're not done. They still have a sizable army still is fielded by the Soviets, and we're going to have our work cut out for us in 1943, but we will be up for the task. All right, here we committed the 14th, the 30th, and the 57th Panzer Corps. I get all those right. Yep, arranging them. They were poised back here. Almost all of the 14th, all 3 Panzer Corps were resting and refitting. This is really the only salient that in our front. It's fairly straight across from north to south. And we're trying to achieve an encirclement, but the Soviets have been withdrawing in such a rapid fashion since, I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, that very likely they're going to pull out. But we're going to try and encircle as many as we can here in this forming pocket. And to accomplish that, we moved up overland. The 31st and the 24th have now been reinforced. We also pried away 2 panzer divisions to reinforce the 24th and the 31st. So now we'll have 2 pincers working in tandem, which I've been lacking in Army Group Center's area of operations for quite a while. Burned up a lot of fuel to move overland. Only had so much rail capacity, and we brought in Totenkopf along with 2 infantry divisions, and we did another rail movement. We were able to rail one of these divisions in. So all rail capacity, I believe. No, it hasn't been expended. We have some more to 2, but we weren't able to get our panzers onto undamaged rail lines in order to make use of the railroads to get them up there. Rather than wait another week, I just did it to get them into position. And we entirely pulled out the 3rd, the 36th and the 37th off the line from this sector around Stalino, and 11th Army still is trying to make it to the front, straggling along here and also here. 2 infantry corps still haven't made it to the front, but we are over. I believe this is the Meuse. Let's check that out. Yep, we're over the Meuse. They did not defend on the east bank of the Meuse. We now have bridgeheads all across, and we're threatening Rostov. So we're going to let our infantry take the lead for the next couple of weeks and rest and refit and reposition our 2 panzer corps here. 36, 37, 38th, and 36. Yeah, there's 3 in here. 3 panzer corps, as well as the 3rd. There's still a healthy amount of panzer corps available to Army Group South, but we have reinforced significantly Army Group Center's component of panzer corps. We are ready to hit next turn. Well, I increased my volume, and I also reduced desktop audio, so hopefully there's a better balance while the Soviets execute their turn. Apologies again for that. All right, let's get to it. Ideally, the Soviets see Italians in front of them in that little salient that developed, and they don't pull out. One consolation, if there is one, with my error in victory point locations, is that by taking the cities, we are denying them the resources that those cities provide for production and manpower, so the Soviets will be hamstrung by that. Oh, here they go. Getting out of dodge. Stalingrad? Why are you showing me Stalingrad? Seriously pull back and yet not even attack those 2 SS Panzer Corps again as grenadiers. Because bombing signifies the end of attacks. They've finished with their attacks, did they? No, they can't have given up Kursk. by taking these cities, we're reducing Soviet industrial capacity and manpower, which is a good thing. We're not racing up the victory point chart like I had hoped. Oh, what I was talking about when you couldn't hear me say hear a word, what I was saying last video was I purchased War in the East 2, pre-purchased it, and I cannot wait to start. And I will make sure I read the manual thoroughly so that I don't miss simple things like victory points. Oh my god. They completely got out of dodge. It's gonna be like Rocky trying to catch a chicken, getting encirclements on these Soviets at the rate they are withdrawing. It forced them to not defend Kursk as solidly as they were. Fairly uneventful. The only disappointment, I think, in that turn was the Soviets are avoiding encirclement. Let's see what the weather's going to be. Any mud? I'll take that any day. Lowland losses. All right, info screens, weather, blizzard, blizzard, blizzard. That's perfect. That means we can attack. Prefer snow, but we'll attack. First thing I want to look at. Oh boy, yeah, they almost escaped entirely. Soviets are learning, but they did concede Kursk. Fine, I'll take it. All right, we'll turn north and east then and start to threaten Soviets in this area of operations along the frontage of Army Group Center. Meanwhile, we'll shatter this front that the Soviets have and try and pick off some stragglers. All right, I believe they will concede Arel next turn, provided we are not able to encircle any of them here. Don't have any Panzer Corps arrayed, so you can see why I want that plan to have Panzer Corps strong groups. You know, I don't want to dilute the force and the might of a Panzer Corps fist, but at least have them to work in tandem. We were trying to apply that, but I couldn't get the, where were we? The 24th, 31st, and the 24th. I couldn't get them up here in time to capitalize on that. I wanted to have a breakthrough, but now they're in place. So for future ops 1943, we're getting our panzers into position, and I'm glad they didn't attack here, because that was an error on my part, a miscalculation, and I'm glad they didn't suffer consequences. Moscow, getting there. And to the north, oh wow, still pulling out. And they're ooh. Strong line here. What do they got going here? All right, we'll continue to attack where we can along Army Group North's frontage. Carve our way to Leningrad. All right, I'm going to step away here, do moves and attacks, and I'll be back. All right, I'm back. Moves and attacks complete. Let's get a situation report. Talon held out again, so we broke contact, reassigned a few divisions to 13th Infantry Corps, and it is going to make its way back to the front. That'll be a couple weeks before it arrives. All around Army Group North frontage, we've made attacks, incremental gains. Most combat results were forcing the Soviets to retreat, but we got a handful of rout results and shatter results that reduces the troop count on the Soviet frontage. However, the Soviets are showing signs of a comeback. More and more Soviet formations are appearing, where their lines looked rather thin, rather threadbare in the heart of our winter offensive. But now, as winter is winding down, the Soviets must have recouped some of their losses and generated more formations, and those are making it to the front. So around Novgorod's region down to Veliky Luki, the Soviets are breaking contact. We are pursuing them into this wildlands, the hinterlands of Mother Russia, this mountain range and swamps and rivers, lakes, frozen lakes, coming adjacent where we can catch them, and east of Veliky Luki we're well into the mountain range, hopefully past it in the next couple of weeks, but mud will arrive soon, and we may get locked in here, but we'll continue to push once the ground is solid and weather is clear. South of Veliky Luki, we continue to press towards Ryzev, disrupting the Soviets wherever we can. It's becoming harder and harder to generate encirclement potentials because of the wear and tear the Germans are showing and the rate at which the Soviets are retreating, combined with blizzard effects. It's hard to catch up and get into attack positions, attack, encircle the Soviets. They just withdraw, and we don't have the combat power or mobility to keep up and get encirclements. So that is their new SOP right now: withdraw, withdraw, withdraw. The benefits to that, we are capturing several of their cities, industrial regions. Vyazma they conceded, Kursk they conceded. I imagine as we put on the pressure here near Ryzev, they will concede Ryzev. Certainly not going to concede Moscow. We have to continue to attack and rupture the Soviets wherever we can accomplish that. Do not let them dig in an ounce, because mud arrives, they will start to dig in. The op tempo is slowing down for the Germans. Granted, we can't keep up. There's blizzard conditions. The Soviets withdraw much more rapidly now. Encirclement potential is not there for us right now. We will take the territorial gains, though. We will take these cities, taking away the manpower and the industrial capacity from the Soviets. South of Vyazma, the front is kind of quiet. No real attacks, just kind of holding the line here. The Soviets have about equal combat power. We may attack here and there as we come adjacent to them. They are withdrawing as well along this sector. Mostly a quiet sector all the way down to the Bryansk region, where we continue to pressure Orel. 14th and 57th Panzer Corps broke open the front, attacking north and east, trying to displace the Soviets. If not get an encirclement, at least force them to concede Orel without a fight. That's fine with me. Because we are attacking in a single location with these two Panzer Corps, and we don't have any Panzer Corps to the north or south of them, still lacking that, we did move up 30th into position so that in 1943 it'll be arrayed in a manner to support the 2nd. We may join it with the 2nd SS Panzer, or we may leave it in place to pick on thinner parts of the Soviets' front to form a arm of a pincer and start to snip off these Soviet divisions. Because of the furious nature of the winter offensive that largely took place, oh geez, from Kharkov south, we don't have and we haven't had our Panzer Corps in a decent position anywhere north of Kharkov to start taking advantage of these Soviet buildups. We're trying to achieve that before mud hits. We did commit to Panzer Corps to an effort just to displace Orel and maybe get an encirclement should the Soviets decide to hang in there, because we're not really threatening anything to the north. We could do this all on our own next turn, I believe, but we're trying to get our Panzer Corps into a good position north of Kharkov to start to have them centralized in certain locations to form the wing of a pincer and get some encirclements. Because right now, the Panzer Corps, outside of what was happening down in Army Group South, have been working in isolation, and the results just aren't there. We can't get the encirclements. The Soviets just get away too quick. And we had moved up the 24th and 31st too late, because the Soviets got out of harm's way south of Kursk, where the salient is already gone. We've pursued them into the hinterland. Amazingly, we're starting to encroach on Vrozna, and should the Soviets continue to withdraw along these river systems, we could be closer to Voronezh before you know it. The actions that 57th and 14th will conduct for the duration of what's left of the winter will be to threaten Orel. South of Orel, we have occupied Kursk. Soviets conceded that, pushing the Soviets back still. And we have the 31st Panzer here, and we talked about the... No, we didn't talk. We didn't talk about the 24th. We talked about the 30th, and now similar, a little further south, we have the 24th that we managed to... Yeah, we didn't get these all on rails. These two we managed to move on to axis rail, and we railed them up to this point. I think we did the same with these two, and we moved our headquarters so that these formations would be, both the divisions to the north and south would be in command and control, but the 24th, 30th are trying to get into position, scrambling to do so, maybe the 31st also, to get in position behind Army Group Center's frontage to assist the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. So once 57th and 14th are done doing this action around Orel, we'll more than likely pull them out. I'm banking on the Soviets conceding Orel. If not, then hey, that's great. We'll get a little encirclement and destroy some of their formations. All right, so south of Kursk, we made attacks all along the front, pushing the Soviets back. This is where their line is thinnest. However, we see some operational reserves. This time we did do some aerial recon. Trickling in, just putting bodies in front of us, roadblocks. They don't attack. They don't have the combat power to attack. They're just essentially meat shields just to slow down and wear down the Germans during the attacks. So once 1943 hits, I can't wait for clear weather and we will get encirclements. I'm greedy. The past month, we didn't achieve very many encirclements compared to what we achieved down by Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporozhye, and further down here by the Crimea, and again here. So we destroyed a lot of Soviet formations. We haven't done so over the past 3 or 4 weeks, and it's bugging me. It is bugging me. So let's talk about, so 31st here, not going to commit them. Going to keep them out of the line. They don't have anything to do really, but maybe pushing in here and joining up with the 39th, and I believe it's the 3rd, which I put into action just to threaten the Soviets and maybe get a little encirclement here. Again, Soviets will retreat, that's what I'm guessing. So before I commit them, I want to see what's going on here. More than likely they're just going to retreat behind this river line. We'll gain more ground, getting closer to the south as well for Voronezh. Should the Soviets pull back here, the other option for the 3rd and the 39th is to turn south and east, because we've brought up the 37th and 38th Panzer Corps. I think the 36th is in here also. Maybe not. Yeah, I think it is. Because we pulled them out of this region. Not going to get them stuck in the mud out here. The only objective for us would be Rostov. There's nothing else past Rostov to warrant any action except to destroy Soviet formations, but there's going to be... This will be more lightly defended. I want to take larger chunks out of the Soviet Field Army, and that is now starting to look like Army Group Center's area of operations. I believe 11th Army will be able to grind toward Rostov with the light Soviet forces that are in front of them. Finally coming online, still straggler corps here, and another one just barely made it into the line. So the full combat power of 11th Army and Army Group South with the infantry, it really hasn't arrived to the front since all the operations down here. So that's the other reason we really aren't getting encirclement potentials. We're ready for next turn. Oh, before we hit next turn, let's look at losses, and look at this. We took Kursk and Vyazma, and look how remarkable our victory points jumped. We are 202 now. Yay! Axis major victory. Let's take a quick look also before we go over to next turn. Industrial regions. We talked about this way back a handful of times in the early going in relation to objectives and planning considerations. We are going to possess Voronezh. Definitely achievable. What is this one? Yelets? Manpower 5, resource production. So there's some scattered like unnamed hexes, like major city locations where there are industrial points. Interesting. So that's good. Take more and more away from the Soviets. So with these industrial areas, holy crap, Tula, that is definitely something to take away from the Soviets. 25 armaments production, 15 manpower, resource production, heavy industry. All right, so the territorial gains at the very end of the 42-43 winter offensive have not been too bad. We're taking away considerable resource production from the Soviets. Stalino, what are they looking like? 19 manpower, 3 railroad. I figured Stalino would be a greater, a larger producer. I guess these three, like this metropolis, these three combined cities, all combined can produce decent amount of resources and industrial capacity to the Soviets. What was this one we captured? Just a port 1, manpower 4. Every little bit counts towards us and taking away from the Soviets. Rostov, definitely want to take Rostov as well. Oh, before I forget as well, okay, anything else to point out? Kursk was decent. Saw that. Orel, Bryansk. So chipping away, taking a nice chunk out of the Soviets' resource production. Most of it is obviously in Leningrad and Moscow, and then far east there's numerous locations the Soviets shifted their heavy industry far to the east, away from the German advance. So not too bad. The last part of the winter offensive, not significant Soviet casualties caused, but territorial gains and industrial objectives taken. All right, let's do next turn now. I expect further Soviet withdrawals. They are starting to thicken their lines, starting to see 2 and 3 high stacks, so maybe a little more localized attacks. They haven't done that in the past 2 to 3 weeks. One thing I'd like to point out, that there are far less tank formations in the Soviets' order battle. Just visually looking across from north all the way to the south, because we have destroyed a great many of their tank formations, and they're having trouble to replace those losses. Not so much manpower. Just emptying the hinterlands of Russia, giving anyone a rifle and pushing them to the front. As predicted, where they had built up a little bit, making some localized attacks. This is the 25th of February. Will it? It should reach March next year. Will there be mud? Will there be mud? Oh, that's what I forgot to do. Show you what was happening in Crimea, where the Romanians are really invading the Crimea. There were no Soviets to be found, except for a isolated hex where there was 2 to 3 corps. Here come the bombs. So that was a handful of localized attacks. Now they're bombing. That was the Soviets' turn. I'm surprised Talinin didn't counterattack. They did indeed. Well, they may not be rendered on the map right now, but it looks like Arel is vacated. Voroshilivgrad also down there. Voroshilovgrad is within reach as well. More industry victory points to be had for the Germans. And there we have it. We are into March 1943. It's going to be a big year for the Germans. Big year. Very important year. The great news is we now can attack in the winter to great effect. So we are not constrained by a limited summer where we are looking only for clear ground, clear skies, light losses on the Germans. Same can be said for the Soviets. What's the weather? Snow, snow, snow. All right. I'll take that. A little less harsh conditions to conduct an offensive operations in. To what extent did the Soviets withdraw? They're not tightening the noose here. Doesn't look like they're thickening the lines. I think they're starting to extract forces, realizing that, hey, we are 20 miles from the Gulf of Finland in some places here. I was thinking of turning south and east and cutting off some of these Soviet formations with 56 Panzer Corps, but the terrain's just so horrible. Here is not a place where you can do dramatic shifts in your axis of advance. All right, Talon in. All right, 13th Corps, get into line. Get into line. You know what? If the Soviets agree to surrender, we'll give them Talon in. They've earned it. We'll take the rest of Mother Russia. All right, so they didn't retreat very much more from really Novgorod all the way down to Veliky Luki, down to Ryzev. Thinner ranks for the Soviets. They can't stack up everywhere. And they did surrender Orel. All right, we'll accept that. May have the combat power to push them through here. Maybe get a small pocket. Maybe it's snow. A little better conditions for us. Kursk south, what's it looking like? Straight line, breaking contact in some spots. Little jagged here. They're deciding to defend in strength, not pulling back. All right. They are challenging 11th Army and 6th Army and Army Group South here. We accept. All right. That is the state of the front as we reach a milestone. March 1943. Each month is very critical. The Germans have to make the most of every month, every week, every turn, every action. Soviets are starting to recover, and that is intensely annoying. Ryzev will take, very confident we'll take Ryzev. Kaluga, Tula, definitely want to take Tula. Maybe. Should the Soviets, if they don't withdraw here, we can definitely get some kind of pocket, small, maybe 1 or 2 hex pocket. If not, they will withdraw and get us closer to Tula and Kaluga. So cities will be falling into German hands in the not too distant future. We will call the video here. A lot more can still happen before Mud arrives. Still get some territorial gains, maybe get some smaller pockets. We'll do all we can. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is First Fire, non-assault move out.